What's up guys, my name is Darren, welcome back to yet another video, and in this video I want to talk about advanced micro devices, or AMD as it's more commonly known. Speaking of commonly known, it's funny because obviously this company is ridiculously popular, especially in the computer industry, and despite all that I still had to go online and do some basic research on the company, which sounds ridiculous, but oh well, because even though I had a general idea of what they did, getting more of general ideas based off the research of what they do makes me even more confident on how I feel like AMD is definitely a tech company that I want to hold on to for the long term. And normally in my videos, like my previous video that I made earlier this week about Rivian, I list 3 different reasons why I personally believe the company is a great long-term hold. But in this video, it all kind of comes down to one reason. But we're gonna get back into that in a little bit. First, I wanna focus a bit on AMD and what they do. So AMD is a company that creates semiconductor technology that's utilized in different computing processing applications such as desktops, laptops, and video games. Aside from that, they also produce things such as flash memory devices, graphic processing units or GPUs, motherboard chipsets, and other relative things like that. So it's safe to say that AMD by itself in a nutshell is significant in the world that we live in today, especially with all the technology that's in the world we live in today. And that technology more than likely is doing some type of computing, whether small or big, depending on the application. And that computing is going to require semiconductor technology, which is what AMD does. It's bread and butter. So again, by itself is great, but what I want to focus on in this video is one major thing that I think will not only make it even more of a societal impact than it already is, but it will also directly impact its stock price, especially for the long term, in my personal opinion, and that involves a potential merger with another company called Xilinx. So Xilinx is another tech company that actually dubs themselves as the #1 provider of computer adaptive solutions. So I guess it's saying that it's like AMD, but a little bit better in certain senses. One sense is the applications that it actually runs through. So with Xilinx, they actually use their technology in applications such as automotive, health and medicine, aerospace and defense, 5G connectivity, and other things like that. In my opinion, it's really important for a company that wants to generally grow and have its stock price grow as well, have a lot of different verticals like a Xilinx. But the one thing that really interested me the most, something I never heard of, is them being the inventors of something called the FPGA. So the FPGA stands for the Field Programmable Gatorade, not the Gatorade drink, but kind of sounds like the same. And the best way I can define it on my own is by comparing it to what's currently out there in processing chips. So one of the more popular purposes of a semiconductor processing chip is within laptops, something that I mentioned that AMD does. As a matter of fact, my current laptop has an AMD Ryzen computer processing chip that allows me to do all this editing and render it in half the time that my older laptop did that wasn't powerful enough to do so. And with that processor, I can download different softwares on it. I can uninstall them, reinstall them, and uninstall them multiple times. But the way that hardware of the processor is built is meant to create some output of a specific CPU, which for my laptop, for example, is meant to directly result in a certain speed of the laptop and how it responds to certain programs that pop up and the amount of programs that pop up at once. That hardware I can't change. But with FPGAs, that's something that's a little different because you actually can change it. So to be more specific, an FPGA is an integrated chip that's designed to be reprogrammable as opposed to another basic, I guess, chip that I believe is also known as an ASIC. I actually don't know what that stands for, but I'll make sure I put it down here. So an FPGA chip gives us the ability to actually adjust the hardware of the processor so we can create some type of different output, which is really beneficial in certain applications, such as if you're building a prototype of something and you apply an FPGA chip into it, but you want that prototype to be adjusted so it can be more powerful in whatever application. You can also adjust the processing chip and the hardware of it so to create a stronger output to match that prototype rather than spending more money to buy a new processing chip. One great example of an FPGA that I looked up are smartphones. One thing that you may not notice about your smartphone is it has a certain latency, which I believe is basically the split time difference between when you swipe up on your phone, for example, when you actually touch the screen on your phone, to when the screen actually responds and moves up. So there's a lot of new phones out that have a higher latency, meaning the reaction time is a lot quicker, as opposed to a lot of older phones that have been made in the past decade, which reaction time is a lot slower. In order to have a device that can have a higher latency, like something new, that's something bigger than a software update. That will require an upgrade because the chip inside allows that higher latency to occur. But with an FPGA, you could essentially take that device or the processor in that device and make hardware adjustments to where the latency of that smartphone is essentially just as fast as a brand new one. Hopefully that makes sense. But all this to say, if a company like Xilinx, with all that it provides, can actually be merged with a major company, a major processing company like AMD, then the benefits of that would be ridiculous. On a general aspect, that merger would allow AMD to use their semiconductor technology on a plethora of applications besides their PCs, laptops, and video games. They could explore automobiles and health and medicine and science and other stuff relative to that. It would also allow them full access to the FPGA technology that Xilinx actually created, which would make it even easier for a company like AMD to utilize their technology in multiple applications. On a financial level, which is also important on a channel like this to discuss, it would increase something called their total addressable market, or their TAM. The total addressable market is basically the max amount of money a company can make off its different markets. And with a company like AMD, its biggest markets are data centers, PCs, and gaming, which makes them about $35, $32, and $12 billion respectively. But if this merger actually happens, then their total addressable market can increase by $110 billion roughly, which that alone should increase the stock price immediately and hopefully in the long term, because that's just more money that this company is making off those avenues and the others that they would be taking in. But on top of that, in my personal opinion, I think this potential merger, along with what AMD already has to offer, would make this company a bigger societal impact than it already is. Even though AMD already makes very important technology that many of us use in our everyday lives, a merger like this would make AMD even more important to society, especially in a society where a lot of technology and different avenues are being created. It will allow them to get into a lot of that. And that's really important right now because we're in a world where we are taking in something that we're dubbing as the metaverse, which is essentially the idea that we can interact with other people without necessarily being right in front of them, or we can reenact with objects and things that we normally wouldn't be able to in a certain way. And companies right now like Facebook, who recently changed their corporate name to Meta, already have things along that avenue like their Oculus glasses, and there's even other companies like Ray that recently created an automobile that's inspired by the metaverse and has metaverse related applications. But those applications are definitely going to require a lot of processing power, and that processing power is something I believe can be achieved by a company like AMD, and having obtained a company like Xilinx with all the things that they offer could just make it a lot easier. And it definitely makes sense, especially considering that AMD recently won a contract with Meta to provide them with their processors. So hopefully a merger like this can expand that in the years to come. So one thing we can definitely take away from this is semiconductors are really important to numerous applications, including vehicles, primarily electric vehicles. But one thing about electric vehicles that are also important are the type of batteries that they have. And this company is actually working on a type of battery that could make lithium-ion batteries a thing in the past. So make sure you check out this video and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I do appreciate you guys watching, and until next time, take care.